Hi you guys, welcome back to Allie's Space to Craft. I'm hanging out and continuing with my thank you card project for my cruise gift swap. So I made 2 cards on the previous video, which probably posted day before yesterday, and now I'm doing card number 3. So this is a relatively simple card. I really wanted to use this super old Creative Memories blue paper. I've always loved this paper. I've used lots of it on different projects in the past, and I found some more sheets of it. So this is going to be relatively straightforward. It's really just blue colors, nothing else really nautical about it. And I'm going to emboss it with the big thank you so much Tim Holtz stamp. And I'm going to emboss it in white. I did look at some white glitter and things, but I decided just to do a regular white embossing powder, and I hope that that will pop enough. I do end up having to redo a couple of them, but most of them come out pretty well. So I've already heat embossed that, and then I will do the rest of them. I'm not sure I make you sit through all of that process, but I do have to trim these. I was doing such a small border that sometimes I needed just to, if my measurements were off just a fraction, it showed. So I'm just trimming these up so that I get enough of that dark blue border for a little oomph on those cards. And of course, it's best to trim them before you stamp them so that I'm stamping in the right place. So this time I remembered my anti-embossing powder. And then I do stamp each one twice, and then use the white powder. And I'm just checking it. The paper's pretty thin, so I was just checking that the heat embossing didn't permanently warp the paper. And it does fine. And then I will be gluing these down so they look good when you do that process. And last one. So I didn't mind making 4 of each of these cards. I think 8 of each. Had I done just 3 designs, that would have been a little too much repetition for me. But doing 4 of each was relatively quick, and I could sort of flex my creativity on the different cards. So here I'm just showing you the finishing touch. I did have some blue sequins that I thought looked good on it as a little bling on the card. So pretty simple. On to card number 4. I really wanted to use this blue paper with the seagulls on it. And I had this border strip from the same piece of paper. So I pulled out some gold. It's actually a rose gold cardstock, mirrored cardstock. The seagulls on the paper are not rose gold, but it's close enough. And that's not going to matter. So I am cutting these scraps from my specialty paper scrap bin, which is where I keep vellum, gold, and glitter scraps. So I'm just double checking and measuring that I've got this cut to the right size. And that one strip, I was able to get all 4 cards out of it. So I'm just looking at it. It's going to have, because it was a little narrow, I think it was 2.5 inches. So I have a good 1/4 inch border all the way around it. And so I'm going to take this blue strip and I'm cutting them first so that I can emboss onto those little strips and it be in the center. So I'm going to use that, the small thank you stamp, and I lose the other part of the stamp. So I had to stop the video and go off and find the other part of the stamp. It had moved when I was shuffling things around my desk. I was in not a panic because I knew it was somewhere, but it was frustrating not to be able to find it since I don't have another appropriately sized thank you stamp, which I need to remedy. So I'll be buying some new stamps. So I also have rose gold embossing powder, and I thought that would be perfect. So these are already heat embossed, and you can see it's not super rose gold. It does come out, and these are going to be, again, pretty simple cards, but cute and effective and a little nautical. So I cut these mirrored cardstocks. I didn't want a white border, so I cut them right at 3x3, but my cards are not all perfectly 3x3, so I had to do a little trimming. And because I'm using the gold, I decided not to use a dark blue. And then I put this band across. And then I cut out of the same gold paper. I used that die for the little seagulls, the little flying seagulls. So I add that to each card. So it's a simple card. They need a little polishing. That gold paper really picks up fingerprints. So I'm going to do that times 3 and move on to card 5. So before I started the video, I used those dies to cut a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, but a set of these shells. And I'm just showing you here that when you cut them, while it was still on the board, I took an ink brush and brushed in some color into the slats that were on the dies. And then afterwards, they're also embossed a little, so I took some pink or corally colored dye and rubbed them just to give some of those shells a little dimension. And I was really, really impressed with the dies. They're just from Temu. They're a set of shell dies, and they are really cute, and they cut really well. They embossed, and they were really fun. And having the cutouts in the top that you can add some ink embellishments and ink details to it while they're on the sheet instead of trying to draw those on was really neat. So my plan is to use that coral colored as a mat and then cut accent paper using this paper, this shell paper. And I do also cut a few shells. You see me cut a few of them, a few things that I can fussy cut. So I do end up fussy cutting that little piece of coral and then a couple of the shells. And you'll see in the finished cards some of those small things on the cards to supplement the die cut shells. So I'm going to go die cut thank you out of that same coral paper that I used for the mat. So again, you don't have a lot of space on a 3x3 card, so yeah, it has to be relatively simple. So I'm putting 2 I end up with 3 in the end because I do a die cut on each. But I do 2 of the die cut shells, and I end up not using the blue ones that I did because I thought the blue was not the right color blue. It was really a darker blue, so I didn't love the blue on the cards, but all the creamy ones with the little pink or coral details looked fantastic. So each one has at least one die cut shell, and then or maybe 2, and then some fussy cut shells as well. So just planning it out to make sure I have enough for 4 cards. And we'll start assembling. So it's pretty straightforward. I didn't put wet glue on the very edge of that mat because that mat paper is pretty thin, and I didn't want it to warp that paper at all. But it's well stuck down. So here we go. And I looked for some sequins, and I have some corally sequins, and I pulled out the clear, so they're a little bit corally pink, but they're clear ones. And then I had some gold, and I think I pulled out a couple of different gold ones. So 3 little sequins for each card, just to add a little sparkle, a little interest. I'm gonna use my pickup tool to get those down. And I'll finish the others off camera, I think. And we're on to card number 6. So this is my last card design, and I want to use that blue swirly paper with the gray in it. And so I decide I'm going to stamp in gray. I lied, that's black. That's not gray. It is, oh, maybe it is gray. It's gray archival ink. And the reason I'm using archival ink is so that if I go to color it, the coloring won't run, but I still get a pretty crisp stamp. And then I have this buoy, so it's going to have 2 little stamped images on these cards, and I'm going to do the gray, and that's just for the sentiment across the middle of it that says ahoy matey. So I'm just trying to get, and I do stamp these quite a bit. There are parts that don't come out right, so I restamp it. So there was a lot of stamping involved. I really should have been doing this using a softer mat so that I got a better impression. Lesson learned. But it's just on scraps, and it was easy to do. And then I'm going to stamp it using red. So I try a couple of different reds. This is lumberjack plaid. I stamp it, but it's not crisp at all. So I don't like the lack of crispness on there. So I pull out an old Stampin' Up ink pad that I have. That's a really dark red. It's almost a little too dark, but it works fine. But I get a clearer stamp with that. So I think I will need probably to get a red archival ink pad as well. Or a VersaFine Clair, actually, is what I really like, because that's really useful for Christmas time and stuff like that. So that will go on my purchase, along with a thank you stamp set. So I just fussy cut out the little boat. And the little banner across the life buoy, life ring. And then I think I just show you one of these. You don't need to see all the fussy cutting that I did. But none of them were difficult to fussy cut out. And I left just the tiniest little halo around it. But I think that I ink everything with hickory smoke ink. I just wanted to pull out more of that gray that's in those little swirls on the paper. And then it hides any issues I have with my fussy cutting. So I'm going to color in some parts, some stripes on the sails on this little boat, and I'm going to try out a couple of different pens. So one is a regular red and one is a deeper red, and I'm just trying to match a little bit closer to the buoy or the lifesaver. So I go with this more cranberry red, and this is a very old Creative Memories pen. So it's not really intended, it's intended for journaling, not coloring in. So it's not perfect, but it works fine. So I'm just coloring in. On one of them I did this stripe across the top. I don't think I did that on every boat. And then just every other stripe on the sails. And so really this card is sort of red, white, and blues, very nautical feel. And we're about to assemble, and then I'm going to also do some paper tearing to create the ocean. So the light blue paper will be the sky with wind, and then just a piece of torn blue paper for the ocean. So I'm doing 2 7/8 for this, so it will be, I think it was 2 7/8. So it will have a small, I had to clean out my trough here because it was tearing the paper a little bit. That happens especially on thinner paper, if you have any paper caught in the little channel. And I'm looking for some gray paper to put behind this as a mat. And so that means I think I probably have to trim the blue paper even a little more. Oh, no, I don't. I cut it the right size. So I'm just laying it out to see. So this is the one card that doesn't actually say thank you, but it does say ahoy mate. And so it can still be used as a thank you card or whatever. So I'm just looking at it and like, well, it needs a little something else. Seems like that boat's just floating out in air. So I'm going to start by just doing a light ink around the edges with hickory smoke. See if I like that look a little better. And I'm liking it, but I want something across. So I had this, one of the scraps I had sitting on my desk was, I tried this one, didn't love it. So I have this paper that I had pulled And it's really old journaling cards, and it's white core, which is important because I tear it so that you can see the white like little waves. It's just a really simple way to evoke water. Sometimes I do layers, multiple layers of the torn paper to be the water, but I didn't need it on this one. So I am trimming everything down so I get a little bit of a white border. And then the gray, and then the blue. It's just a really nice and sort of calming color combination for me anyway. And then you have those pops of red and white on the boat and the buoy. So I will go off and do the rest of these. I'm just fluffing up those waves a little bit. And I purposefully tore it so that it had little peaks on the tear. And I chose to not pop these up, though you easily could have, and it would have been perfectly cute. So now we'll go look at all the cards. All right, here are my 6 different cards for my little gift swap. Ahoy matey. These thank you cards. These sort of blue nautical feeling thank you cards. I love the gold seagull cards or seabird cards. The hexagon map cards with gold embossing, and the seashell cards. Please give this video a thumbs up and come back for more fun crafting.